I want to talk about something that almost all of us do, often without questioning it. Trying to feel better. It sounds reasonable, responsible, even. If something feels uncomfortable, confusing, heavy, or off, of course we would try to feel better. That feels like common sense. And yet, I've been noticing something underneath that impulse. Not judging it, just noticing it. Because the effort to feel better often carries an assumption we don't name. The assumption is this: that something is wrong right now. Not wrong in a dramatic way necessarily, just wrong enough that this moment needs to be improved before I'm okay. And once that assumption is in place, a lot follows naturally. We start fixing, explaining, reframing, distracting, optimizing, enduring, all in service of getting somewhere better than here. And what's interesting is how early this becomes normal. Feeling better becomes the goal. Staying with what's here becomes almost suspicious. I want to be clear. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with relief or comfort or joy. I'm curious about the effort to feel better and what that effort really teaches us about ourselves. Because very often, trying to feel better isn't just about self-care. It's about whether we trust what's here to be survivable, to be allowed, to stand on its own for a moment. I notice this most in ordinary situations. Standing in line someplace or waking up with a heaviness that I can't explain, realizing I'm irritated for no clear reason, or just feeling restless at the end of the day. Whatever it is, the impulse is almost immediately, I shouldn't feel this way. And then the subtle work begins, trying to shake it off, trying to tell myself it's not a big deal, looking for a reason so that I could justify it or dismiss it. What's striking is how quickly the moment turns into a problem to solve. Not because it's unbearable, but because it's unexplained. There's a particular tension that shows up when we're trying to feel better. On the one hand, there's the part of us that says, I'm uncomfortable, I want relief. That's human. Underneath it, there's often a quieter message. This state isn't acceptable. This shouldn't be happening. I need to move out of this. This second message is rarely spoken aloud, but it shapes the whole experience. Because now the present moment isn't just uncomfortable, it's insufficient. And when a moment is insufficient, we often experience ourselves that way too. I've noticed that when I'm trying to feel better, there's usually a sense of urgency, even when nothing urgent is actually happening. There's a tightening. There's this feeling that something has to be resolved. It's almost like it has to be resolved before I can feel safe or before I can feel okay. Sometimes this shows up as a thought. Oh, if I could just understand this, or if I could just shift my mindset, or if I could just calm down. And sometimes it shows up as self-management, talking myself out of how I feel, correcting my reactions, or just telling myself that I should be tougher or wiser or more evolved than this. All of that can look really reasonable, and often it is. But I'm still wondering what sits underneath that. What I often find there isn't a lack of discipline or a lack of insight. It's distrust. Not distrust of myself exactly, but distrust of the present moment. Distrust of not knowing. Distrust of discomfort. Distrust of being here without a plan. It's as if there's an assumption that this moment, left alone, might take me somewhere I don't want to go. So effort steps in. Not because it's kind and not because it's effective, but because stopping feels risky. And underneath all of that is fear. Not a loud fear, a quiet one. A fear that if I stop trying to feel better, I'm going to get stuck, or I'm going to sink, or somehow I'm going to make things worse. It's as if effort is the glue that is holding everything together. And so even when the fixing isn't working, even when we're tired of managing ourselves, we keep going. Not because it helps, but because letting go feels too dangerous. And that fear makes sense. It didn't come from nowhere. Many of us learned early on that staying alert, improving, correcting, these are all ways that we stay safe. So, of course, the idea of not trying can feel like letting go of the wheel. There's also a quiet exhaustion that comes with always trying to feel better, because improvement never really ends. Even when things are going well, there can be an undercurrent of, how do I maintain this? What if something goes wrong? What's the next thing that I need to be working on? Feeling better becomes something now that you have to hold on to. And then without realizing it, a lot of energy can go into managing an idea of yourself. That calmer version, a clearer version, a more together version. That imagined version can start to feel more trustworthy than the one who's actually here. And the present self, the real one, becomes provisional. Something to tolerate, something to put up with, something to improve or to fix. That's a strange kind of common sense when you pause to look at it. I want to say something carefully here. There's a difference between responding to discomfort and correcting it. Trying to feel better can sometimes be a response, but very often it's a correction. And correction carries judgment. Not a loud judgment, but a very quiet and persistent judgment. The kind that says, this shouldn't be happening. And once something shouldn't be happening, we're no longer with it. We're against it. What I've been discovering slowly is that there are moments when the most honest thing to do is to not try to feel better. not as a rule, not as a philosophy, just in the moment. To let the discomfort be present without immediately trying to fix it, without turning it into something to overcome. This doesn't mean that you like it. It doesn't mean that you agree with it. And it doesn't mean that you won't act later. It simply means you're not being unkind to yourself for having a human experience. Maybe self-trust isn't about believing in a better version of yourself, but about not abandoning the version who's right here. Not because this version is resolved or certain or finished, but because leaving yourself is a cost most of us never stop paying. There's something that happens when effort drops, even briefly. The nervous system softens, and the internal commentary slows down. Not because the situation has changed, but because the relationship to the situation has changed. You're no longer arguing with reality. And interestingly, when that argument stops, clarity often has more room to arrive. Not a forced clarity, not answers, just enough space to breathe, enough space to stay. And this is where common sense begins to loosen. Because common sense tells us if you're uncomfortable, do something. So maybe another kind of sense says, first, see if you can just be here without fixing. Not forever, not heroically, just long enough to notice that nothing about this moment needs to be justified. Sometimes what's here is simply that you're human, that you're tired, that you're uncertain, that you don't know yet. These aren't problems. These are conditions of being alive. I'm not offering a new rule here. I'm not saying don't try to feel better. I'm simply wondering what becomes possible when feeling better is no longer the immediate requirement. When okayness isn't conditional on improvement. When the present moment doesn't have to earn its place. That kind of permission isn't something that you apply, it's something that you remember. So when you find yourself trying to feel better, you may not need to stop. You might just want to notice. Notice the effort. Notice the assumptions. Notice what you believe would happen if you didn't try. And let that noticing be enough.